A royal ship is tearing apart in the middle of a screaming ocean. Sailors are panicking, nobles are crying out, and the vessel is seconds away from sinking into the dark water. But as quickly as the chaos starts, the sky clears. The wind dies. This weather is a targeted, perfectly calculated attack. It is the brilliant opening move of William Shakespeare's final masterpiece, The Tempest. This storm is the culmination of a meticulously planned revenge plot, designed by a man who has waited years for the exact right moment to strike. That man is Prospero. Years earlier, he was the rightful Duke of Milan, but Prospero was obsessed with esoteric knowledge, spending far more time buried in books of magic than actually ruling his city. His brother Antonio saw an opening. Backed by Alonso, the King of Naples, Antonio seized the throne, dragged Prospero out of the city, and abandoned him at sea in a rotting boat with his young daughter, Miranda. Against all odds, they washed up on a remote, uncharted island. Stranded and isolated, Prospero spent the next decade mastering the magical arts. He bent the island to his will, dominating the local spirits, including the powerful Ariel, and forcing the island's native, Caliban, into servitude. Now the trap is set. The very men who stole his life, Antonio and Alonso, happened to sail too close to his shores. Prospero conjured that terrifying storm to wreck their ship and drag them directly into his territory. Which brings us to a compelling thought experiment. If you had godlike power over the exact people who ruined your life, what would you do with it? Prospero's first tactical move is pure psychological warfare. He commands his spirit servant, Ariel, to pull the shipwreck survivors out of the water and scatter them across the island. This schematic shows how his strategy works. The survivors are split from a single origin point into 3 distinct, isolated pathways. On the first pathway, Prospero isolates a single piece, Ferdinand, guiding the prince straight to his daughter, Miranda. The two of them fall in love almost instantly. Rather than let it play out organically, Prospero steps in as a harsh tyrant. He subjects Ferdinand to grueling physical labor, forcing the prince to prove his intentions are genuine. Prospero holds absolute control over the environment. Even pure, spontaneous human connection becomes a calculated variable to be managed in his master plan. But no master plan is perfectly neat. Caliban, resentful of Prospero's rule, teams up with 2 drunken sailors. Together, they plot a chaotic, violent rebellion to murder Prospero and take the island. At the exact same time, Prospero's brother Antonio proves he hasn't learned a thing. Spotting an opportunity, Antonio tries to convince another nobleman to murder the sleeping King Alonso and steal his crown right there in the jungle. Prospero monitors this underlying chaos effortlessly. He sees every whisper, every drawn sword, and every drunken scheme from above, acting as an omniscient stage director. With a few commands to Ariel, he easily disrupts the chaos. He distracts the drunken rebels with magical illusions and wakes the sleeping king just seconds before Antonio can strike. With the loose ends tied up, Prospero executes the final phase. He drives all 3 scattered groups into a single location, trapping his terrified, exhausted enemies exactly where he wants them. He has achieved total dominance over the men who betrayed him. The grand revenge he spent 12 years building is fully loaded and ready to fire. But standing face to face with his captors, with the power to ruin them finally in his hands, Prospero stops. He watches King Alonso weeping, broken by the belief that his son drowned in the storm. He sees the crushing weight of exhaustion and guilt on the men who wronged him, and he recognizes their humanity. He holds the power to destroy them. He chooses to forgive them. By choosing mercy over wrath, the fractured world begins to heal. Alonso is joyfully reunited with a very much alive Ferdinand. Miranda's future is secured through their engagement, and Prospero reclaims his rightful title as Duke of Milan without shedding a drop of blood. He chooses to dismantle the exact trap he spent his entire life building, proving that the ultimate display of power is restraint. In his final moments on the island, Prospero takes 2 deeply symbolic actions. He frees his servant Ariel, releasing the spirit from his control,
and he permanently breaks his magical staff. He willingly surrenders his absolute authority. He strips himself of his invincibility so he can step back onto a ship and return to the deeply flawed human world as a vulnerable, mortal man. The magic in The Tempest is merely a tool to explore a much heavier theme: the corrupting weight of total control, and the immense, quiet strength required to let go of our own anger. We all encounter moments where we desperately want to exact revenge or obsessively dictate the outcome of a situation. But like Prospero, we possess the capacity to simply release it. When you inevitably face that collision of power and betrayal in your own life, what will you choose?